Well, hey, welcome to A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall, and we have a guest with us. You guys have seen his name when you see all the comments, you keep seeing Josh Gunderson, Josh Gunderson, Josh Gunderson. This is our friend from high school. You knew Marshall longer than me, right? You guys both went to should we say
junior high?
We went to junior high together, yes.
I met
but
you
I
in
think
a
we
band.
lived in the same neighborhood for even longer.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that. So, yeah, I met you in band.
Yes, sir.
I played trumpet at the time, and you were on the tuba.
I was the tuba and baritone when they needed baritones.
Were you in a concert band as well? Baritone or concert band?
Yes.
Or no? Yeah, because I switched to French horn.
They generally will pull you over to that tuba if they can because nobody plays it.
Exactly. They'll bring you over there. Well, Mr. Miller, you probably don't know this. I mentioned this before. When my wife and I got married, the neighborhood we moved in across the street from Mr. Miller. So
no kidding.
He was my neighbor across the street from 99 until
oh, wow.
Yeah, all the way until we moved.
Oh, I had no idea. That's a small world.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But he talked me into playing French horn. I saw by the second half of the year in a concert band. So we played marching band. He's like, I need a French horn player. And I'm like, okay, so I got to learn how to do it left-handed instead of right-handed. But so tell us a little bit. You live out here on the coast? I'm gonna update some stuff.
I live up in North County in Paso Robles.
They call it North County?
Yes. There's sort of a separation there at the Cuesta grade. So you have San Luis Obispo more or less in the middle of the county. And then South County would be your 5 cities, Pismo Beach and Arroyo Grande and such. And then North County is Templeton, Paso Robles, Atascadero, San Miguel. And they're sort of all bedroom communities
but it's
to
all
San Luis
still in
Obispo.
San Luis Obispo County.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
You don't get into Santa Maria until you get down to
we should probably
or Santa
explain
Barbara
what's
until
going
you
on
get down
for
by.
people who don't know. We are in Avila right now. I don't know if you can tell right now. The hotel room we're in isn't exactly a beachfront area the room that we're in right now, but we're in the town of Avila. I'm on vacation, but it just so happens Marshall has moved.
Out here.
He's now moved and lived out to the Central Coast, and you live in the Paso Robles North County area.
We're bringing you all over.
And so we decided Avila seemed to be right in the
Come
middle.
join us.
Yeah, so we all met at my hotel while I'm on vacation, and so we're here at Avila at the San Luis Bay Inn. Come join us. Room number I am not going to tell you.
There's this couch right there.
Yeah, there's a couch. You can bunk in right there. And so I'm sitting here waiting to see if Josh Gunderson's going to join us on commenting, but you're right here.
Yeah, that's probably going to be odd, isn't it?
Yeah, that is gonna be. Carrie's watching us. Jeffrey's right there. So thank you for joining us, guys. It's a little bit of a special. I hope you can. My son Gabriel is producing for us. We're actually out on the deck, and he's actually in the hotel room shooting through the sliding glass door because we had enough room to making this work. We don't have our normal microphones and stuff like that, but we're making it work. And
I finally got us all shared out on socials. I can't get any of this to load on the iPad, so I had to struggle with it for a bit. But I'm going to put the phone right here. So if folks want to comment and everything,
yeah, we're going to try to find that on there.
I'll see the comment. And Carrie, we're sorry that you're not out here with us, but we're going to just have to have a social event out here at the beach.
Yeah, and
there you go.
Invite all of our fans to come to the beach on one of these weekends or one of these vacation times because. I mean, I'm from Bakersfield. I'm the only one now that still lives in Bakersfield of all of us here. But Bakersfield comes out here. I mean, we went to.
Yes.
I go, hey, we're going to visit a church today in San Luis Obispo. A friend of mine who used to work at our Las Vegas campus started this church over in San Luis Obispo. They meet at the Fremont Theater downtown San Luis Obispo. So we go over there, and I'm thinking I'm not going to, I might see him and see who else is there. Of course, I show up, and there's like 36 people from Bakersfield who are on vacation. Yeah, I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? You're from Bakersfield, and they moved to Las Vegas, and here's the other person from Bakersfield, and so it's like we come over here, and half of Bakersfield's over here anyway. So
I've heard it referred to as Bakersfield West.
Yep, Bakersfield West.
In fact, I shied away from Cal Poly for a number of years because I thought, well, why am I going to go over there if it's just an extension of Bakersfield? And then I came over here and was like, why did I wait so long?
It's totally not a.
And then I moved to Paso Robles where it's just as hot as Bakersfield, but you make mistakes anyway. So.
Bakersfield, love it or leave it.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I think Marshall wins the Segway Award.
Yeah, into the topic today.
Yeah, because if you saw that we're talking about America, love it or leave it, we're kind of talking about this whole thing that's been going on. I know that Trump kind of tweeted some stuff about that, specifically to some people that made it really, really a politically bad idea to tweet it to those specific people. But just the notion itself, we're talking a little bit about, what about that? America, love it or leave it. I find myself, I personally find myself more towards the side of, if you really don't like it, then why are you here? And, if you're really going to talk that bad about it and really think it really is that awful, then aren't you being a hypocrite for staying? I mean, I'm looking at it like that. Like, if it really is that bad and if it really is that evil, then why are you still being a part of it and benefiting from it? Why don't you live up to your own standards and leave? That's how I feel. But I feel people take that too far and say, let's kick them out. And I'm like, hold on, that's not what.
Yeah, that is probably an extension of the same thought, but that is a more extreme extension.
Yeah, and the whole idea of go back to where you came from, that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying, if you're saying that it's so bad, then why are you staying? Why? If you're going to bash it so much while benefiting from it, doesn't that make you a hypocrite?
Well, how many people were brought here, had their ancestors brought here as slaves? They probably wanted to go home and certainly weren't allowed. And now their descendants
Some
are
tried.
here. And, a few tried. But now their descendants are here, and now they're stuck in this system. And I know you guys don't like the whole systematic racism thing and all that, but they are being constantly victimized by that. And I think they have a valid complaint. You've got Native Americans who are the indigenous, who were dispossessed of all these lands, and now they're herded onto reservations, oftentimes on subprime land, to put it nicely. Yeah. And they're trying to scratch out a living. And then, of course, here we are, we're a nation of immigrants, where all of our ancestors at some point or another immigrated to this country, and now we, especially those of us who are privileged, like myself, I obviously benefit from a certain degree of privilege, and it's very rich for us to turn around and say to other people, well, if you don't like my privilege and the way I'm using my privilege to take it full advantage of everything there is in this nation, then you can leave. Well, to me, that's kind of, it's snobby, and it's wrong. It's wrong.
That whole idea, I agree with. The idea of, why don't you just, it's just that tough. I don't want it to be. I think it's wrong for people to be saying go back where you came from. That's.
Well, there's another aspect of it too. I mean, there are people. Myself, I have a dissenting viewpoint often, but I'm not necessarily willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Even though I'm also not particularly fond of a two-party political system. It is the system that I've grown up with, and as a taxpayer for all these years and participating in it, I have a responsibility to that system just as you guys do. And part of that is to keep it working as we found it, or maybe to leave it off a little bit better off than we found it. And so I think there's room to have a discourse over it. I think the issue is we're all very sensitive for our own positions when we hear other people talk about, things that we love. And sometimes, one person's view of how they could make things better could be taken in by another person as a complaint or bashing the country and so forth. And I think it's better if we can get to the root of what we really mean when we're making statements about our country, but we're usually in this bumper sticker world. So it's tough. I mean, it's like a drive-by shooting of information, like, U.S. out of Afghanistan, bye. And without something to qualify that, I may say, well, my son is in Afghanistan and my other son lost his leg in Afghanistan. And who are you to say we should cut and run? And I can't make that decision for them, but my own responsibility to us being in that conflict says that I should probably be trying to, mitigate the harm or find a way out of it. And if you just leave, then you sort of abandon that responsibility, which is just as vile in a way.
Yeah.
Not that I wouldn't love Canada on certain days.
Well, and then we're telling people who are taking that advice overseas and they're leaving these countries where they're coming from and coming here because they don't like it where they're at. And then we're rounding them up and we're detaining them and trying to throw as many as we can back to where they came from. So,
but again, what you're saying there is disingenuous.
Well, sure.
What you're saying is this, because that's not what's happening. It's only those who are illegally trying to get in.
Right,
People
right.
who are
I'm not
trying to
making
go
any
through.
distinction between legal and illegal immigration.
Right.
But we're not being
But
very
there is a
welcoming to
distinction.
any kind of immigrants.
No, that's not
asylum
true.
seekers.
That's not true.
2/3 of the asylum requests at the border are ultimately.
But they're not at the
approved.
border. They're not at the border. That's the problem. The
Well,
problem.
ports of entry,
they're
or
not
they're
coming.
being held
That's
in
the problem.
Mexico.
That's the
Well, and
problem.
we've
That's
we've
not
Is that
being
they're
reported.
not
limited
coming
ports
through
of
the right
entry.
ports of entry.
I mean, in the last 2 years, we have deliberately they call it metering.
Mm-hmm.
They are putting people out in front of American
when
soil.
touching your mic.
Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me, guys, in your ears. But you know, once you set foot on American soil, you can then make that asylum claim. The Trump administration has taken steps to keep people from making that foot onto American soil to be able to make that asylum claim.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pushing them around to ports that aren't legitimate ports of entry, which are more dangerous for all of us. You know, and
Or they're coming in between the ports of
Yes.
entry, through the national parks, through private land.
Yeah.
With the coyotes, the drug runners, the traffickers, the human traffickers.
And there's
that's
and-
bad for everyone.
yes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure. I'm always trying to keep the honest people honest. Always trying to, I don't like when we throw out a just a blanket statement when really that's not exactly what's
But I do
happening.
think it's a fair question, right? Here's
No, it is.
It is.
Where you're going with it, with the fair
Yeah.
question, the idea of here are these people who are, they don't like it, so they're leaving and they're coming over here. So then there are people who are on this side who say like it or leave it. Okay, here are these people who didn't like it, they leave it, and they're trying to come over here, and they're saying, why don't you go back where you came from?
Well, there might
that's-
even be another distinction there too.
Yeah.
People who don't like it. I have many friends that are from Mexico
Yeah.
that didn't like it, and they got on a plane, got a visa, came over here, worked, went through. I mean, what's a pretty arduous process to get naturalized, but they did it, and they had the room in their life to do that, because if they got turned away, they still could go home. And then there's people that are really, I mean, they feel trapped in their lives, whether it is just a domestic abuser or a drug gang. There are things that we have sown in Central and South America that are now coming back to. We're reaping those rewards,
Yeah.
as it were. And I can't say that 90% of those people are legitimate until they go through a court and we make that decision.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a complicated mess, regardless.
So just to see where we stand personally, raise your hand if you own or display a flag at your home at any time.
An American flag?
Yep, an American flag.
Oh, an American flag? No.
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 I have a flagpole. It's got a Grateful Dead flag on it sometimes.
Uh-huh.
So there you go.
Well, again, that's what I'm talking about. Is I do appreciate this country, and I am proud that I live in America because I know the positives that came with that. I know the privilege that comes with that, and I recognize that. And I also understand. I see things in the political system that don't go right, and I want to vote in a way to bring it back around, and I want
Sure.
to do that. But I do that through the view of I appreciate where I live. And this is how I feel, especially when we come around to times of like Memorial Day, 4th of July, stuff like that, or things like that, to where people are like, burn the American flag, and the American flag is a symbol of tyranny and all this kind of stuff. I feel like it's you're the spoiled teenager. Not even teenager. You're the spoiled 20-some-odd-year-old who's still living at home, still living with your parents, getting room and board. Your mom is still cleaning your laundry. You're getting food for them. They're paying your your insurance, and you have your phone through them. And all you can do is complain about how terrible your parents are. And I feel it's a don't you recognize the privilege you have, and then you just sit there on your parents' birthday. It's your parents' birthday, and you can't say something nice about your parents, and they're giving you all these things, and it's their birthday, and all you can do is talk about, well, they're still evil, and they have this history of this, and they treat
it
me
wouldn't
bad.
mean
They're
so
not
much if it
really-
were compulsory, though, right?
No.
I mean,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
you flew your sickle and hammer because you wanted to, it probably would be all right. But the fact that the state was looking to see if you were doing it was why we had an attitude about it.
When was
There's
the
my
state,
mic
when,
again.
when was the state looking to do it?
No, I mean in the Soviet Union.
Right,
But I'm saying if we were to say you can't be patriotic because you don't fly a flag, we're sort of undermining
there's
the
nothing-
flag.
there's
To
nothing-
honor your
I
country.
wouldn't.
Right, but
I
there's
wouldn't.
nothing. I'm not talking about anything legal.
Well, no. I'm saying
simply
even
talking
if
about
I were to go
attitude.
down the street and see that you were flying a flag, I would not think to myself, that guy. I would think he's got a flag.
Well,
I have neighbors that have flags, and I'm
I was using.
I
I was
really
using
am
the, I
not,
was using the flag as an idea. I wasn't trying to make.
question.
I wasn't trying
Yeah.
to make it about the flag. I was trying to make it about the I was trying to talk about the attitude, the equivalence of the attitude.
Right.
Oh, gotcha.
You
I
are
challenge that.
you are sitting in a place of privilege because of where you're at, and you can only complain about where you're at.
And you're talking about complaining on your parents' birthday. Well, what if you're kidnapped? What if they're not really your parents in a way? And that's. what
But
we
you
have
are. You are. You're born in this country. That's
Okay,
your. That's your parents.
But I'm a Caucasian American, so
I'm an
automatically-
Hispanic American.
I automatically have a seat at the big table, you know, with all the best food and everything.
I'm an
like that.
Hispanic
But there
American,
are people in the
two
family
generations out from
who-
immigrants.
who were not invited to the table. There were people in the
Yes,
family
my
who were
ancestors.
kidnapped
My ancestors
and
were not
and
invited,
brought over,
and they came
there
in.
are people who are not invited to. The
But it doesn't
table. They
matter.
have to
I'm
eat at
still an
the kids'
American now.
table,
They came in
and-
to be an American.
Oh, okay.
because
I understand
America
your
was great.
Family story.
Right, but I'm saying
But
you're trying to
America-
nullify it because that's not your family story. It is my family story, and I still have this
I understand
pride in
that,
America.
but I'm telling you, there are other stories besides mine and yours.
That's fine.
Well,
but
we can
because
have
they're here,
dualities in our own lives. My wife's family they're Native American. Their Native American origin is actually in Sonora, Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
But because of geopolitical shifts, you know, in the last 150 years, they kind of moved back and forth between who was killing them the worst at the time.
Yeah.
And where they wound up is half of them in Mexico and half of them up here, and kind of well spread out. And you know, there's the Malcolm X quote that they didn't land on Malcolm or on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a way, the Native American population, they have a very strange relationship because they are oppressed in the sense that they didn't choose it, and at the same time are some of the most patriotic people I've ever known, my wife included. And I think that you can have it both ways. I see this with a lot of my friends that are from Mexico that like having their Mexican flag, and they like kicking the soccer ball around in the, you know,
Yeah.
at lunchtime, and they do their thing, but they are also very happy to be Americans, and they have a reverence for it that they clearly instill in their children.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very easy for us to look at somebody else and question how they view their place in our society, but is it really for us to do that? I apologize again with the microphone. You know, we all are a part of the system, so it just seems sort of an ugly perspective to try and sit in judgment over another person and say, well, you know, I feel like I should be here because of X, Y, and Z, and you know, your story maybe not. And I've seen that in my own family. You know, and there's some disagreement in our family over where that legitimacy line lies, and I think that that's for us all to decide. And I don't know that I need them to qualify what they're deserving to be here with, you know, how they love the country necessarily.
Right.
Well, to use the analogy of the family dinner, I suppose, to carry this further, again, there are some people who are stuck at the kids' table, even though they're full-grown adults, and we're complaining at them. Well, what are you complaining about? You should be grateful that you're here, when that's not this country was not predicated upon that. From the founding fathers on, the whole idea behind America is anybody can come here, pull themselves up by their bootstrap, and make a new life, and it's supposed to be a meritocracy. But we've learned, especially this past year with things like the college cheating scandal and stuff like that, America is absolutely not a meritocracy. We have an aristocracy in this country. And it seems like people who are in the aristocracy and people connected to the aristocracy...
Are my kids in the aristocracy?
To a degree, yes.
Are they?
Because
Why?
Because they are Caucasian. And if you are Caucasian, if you are identified by others,
But
as a Caucasian
how
American, you have
how
a
has
certain
being
measure of
how has
privilege
he
that
being
people of color-
Caucasian? What is it that my ancestors didn't do enough of to earn his privilege?
What do you mean they didn't do enough of to?
Well, apparently,
I
apparently
don't
you
understand.
don't believe that my ancestors did enough. That really the reason why they're in such privilege is simply because of the color of their
All
skin.
of our ancestors made a certain degree of sacrifice to get here and be what they are.
Yes, my
But
Hispanic
the
ancestors.
problem is we have a lot of people in this country who've pulled up the ladder behind them.
That's
and
no, that's bullcrap.
That actually goes
That's
back to the
bull
very
crap.
beginning. If you look at some of the writings of like Benjamin Franklin,
Yeah.
he had very precise feelings on what whiteness was and who was really white. And I certainly would not have been white in Benjamin Franklin's eyes because of my Scandinavian heritage, because I'm part Hungarian. Those are things that have changed in our country,
Yeah.
and for the better.
But those are, like I said, those are things
but
that
we
no
haven't
longer matter.
arrived. No,
Well,
it
they,
doesn't
they
matter.
those
shouldn't
things that
matter, but it
don't
doesn't
matter.
mean that they don't. I mean,
They do matter.
I bring up my wife. My wife is dark complected.
Yeah.
She does not feel dark complected.
Right.
Her entire family is the complexion of mine. They're
Are
very
your
pink.
kids white?
Depending on
If
the
somebody
time,
looks
depending
at
on the
them.
time of year, yeah.
If somebody looks at them, are they
But
white?
they get a little summery, and they start to put on a lot more pigment than
So,
say I do.
Because they're white, do they no longer deserve the privilege they have?
Well, I don't know that any of us deserve the privilege that we have. I think that's sort of something we've settled into,
Right.
and I think that's a lot of the angst that we have as a country right now. Is that there are those of I don't consider myself liberal. I know that my perspective, conservatives will call that liberal. Even as a liberal person in that mindset, if I go down the street and I see a black person in Paso Robles, I find myself noticing that because there are so few of them. And I do not think to myself, I better lock my doors.
Right.
Or, but I'm not able to escape the fact that I do notice that distinction. And I don't think
what's
that
wrong
should
with
be a
noticing
bad
that
thing.
distinction?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that
What's
it
wrong
should
with
be bad.
noticing the distinction?
I
But
don't
there
think
are-
we should be colorblind. If anything, I think
It's a spectrum, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole colorblind thing is actually a way of whitewashing over racism. I think we have to acknowledge the uniqueness of people, but at the same time, we also have to hold this nation accountable for the ideals it claims to have. If we are supposed to be a meritocracy, if we are supposed to be where all people are equal in the eyes of the law, then we need to hold the decision makers' feet to the fire and hold them to that ideal. And I think
Yes.
in a lot of ways, and when you look at the data, we continue to fall short. We have not arrived.
I think
And so it's
individuals
not that
have
I
fallen
don't
short.
love the country, it's that I don't
Individuals
like where
have
we're
fallen
at.
short,
Yes.
not the country.
I don't, well, I think there's more we can do on a systematic level to make the nation what it was supposed to be all along.
The-
What-
what the-
something
no,
it's never
no.
been, by the way.
Right? No.
Work in progress.
Because
it's a work in
because you
progress.
believe, because we talked about this the last time, the difference between liberty and freedom. You believe you believe that the American dream is to have freedom. You think the American dream is to have everything provided for you, so you have freedom to do what you want because everything's already provided, not independence. I believe America is founded on independence, the idea that that you are free to make your own decisions, but you are responsible for yourself. Nobody else is responsible
It's
to
easy
provide for
to say
you.
that from a position of privilege.
Again, I come from a position of privilege because of the work and the effort and the good choices that my immigrant ancestors made. Not my white ancestors, not my white, born rich, privileged ancestors made, but the hard work and good decisions that my Mexican ancestors made. They made good decisions. They did work hard. They came to America, and because they came to America and did the right things and made good choices, they did progress. They did provide for their kids. They did give privilege to my dad, who then worked hard and gave privilege to me, who I have worked and given privilege to my kids. We have earned that privilege, not because of the color of our skin, not because we are white, but because of the decisions we made and this country giving us the opportunity to do that. I don't come from white, whatever, born rich and however you want to describe whiteness. I don't care about how to describe
Well,
whiteness.
there's a
You
difference
seem to
between
care.
privilege as far as an economic privilege and privilege as far as like a cultural, societal privilege, right? I mean, I did not have any money growing up. We were extremely poor, and
We all
I
came
was
from a
able
very
to.
similar economic
You know,
Yeah.
but
grew up in the same
I have a lot of friends from
Effectively.
that neighborhood that were not able to parlay their skills into a better place in life.
What neighborhood was that? Were you guys by Pioneer?
Yeah,
All East Bay.
you were a
yeah.
few blocks from Pioneer, probably, weren't you? I think I was probably about a half
on
mile.
Tony Street off Fairfax.
Okay,
See, I was
Yeah.
south of the train tracks on Oswald and Virginia.
and
Yeah.
that is actually a different area. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's even more rough than
I
Yeah.
would say so. Yeah.
My mom still lives there, same house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But what
She's a
I'm
70-year-old
getting
white
at
lady in the middle
is
of
that
this
if you've got an economic advantage, you could be of a non-white complexion and still be able to do well, but to some degree in spite of your complexion, right? This was the point I was making about many of the people I know that are dark complected that go through life not feeling that way. It's because they were raised to be equal. you know, and
Yeah.
I've always treated people that way, so it does not make a difference to me. But I've seen also how other people can treat them
Yes.
in a distinct manner that's not the way they'd treat me, and I find it very upsetting because, you know, it's obvious and invisible, and I think that as long as it's there, we're going to be fighting it. I don't know that it's as institutionally ingrained these days as it was in, say, the 50s. And I think our court systems have been trying, albeit, you know, like a pendulum swing, to take off those sharp edges in our society and round them out. But there's reason for us to go after those because there are people that are, I mean, expressing like bigotry in the workplace or prejudice in the workplace.
Well, and then when our president gets on Twitter, other people, some of his closest or biggest fans, I should say, take inspiration from that, and now we're seeing all these viral videos of people running their mouths at other people in public, something that would have shocked us, you know, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago when we had videos of Antifa beating people up because they're wearing a red hat. So, I mean, yeah, that did exist. It wasn't against your side. So that did already exist. Those videos did exist of people having eggs.
That's a different discussion.
Right, but I'm saying, but you're trying to say that it's just something new. No, that existed 4 years
to
ago.
argue that Antifa is, I mean, I don't want to get to the
No, I'm
here.
right, but I'm just saying.
The only
that
thing
already
new is that
existed.
it's being broadcast out of the White House.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, even George.
that's not-
I had
not
I had
the- not
all
the videos. He's
all
not-
manner of reasons to not care for George W. Bush's
Yeah.
I'm
you know,
talking
presidency.
about the videos. The videos aren't being broadcast out of the White House.
Oh no,
talking
no,
about all the
I'm just
viral
saying as
videos.
far as the reason we're talking about it.
Right,
I
but
mean,
specifically, he
if
was
you
talking
have
about
like
the-
a
suddenly we
racist on the
have-
corner, it doesn't carry the same weight as a guy in the White House saying he may not even have to be a racist,
Right.
right? You just say that and it's taken the wrong way. We saw that with Obama.
Yeah, you have to be careful what you say. I understand that. I was just challenging the idea that he was saying we suddenly have all these videos coming out of people being empowered by those comments,
Right.
and now there's videos of people that say, and I'm like, no,
Well, how many people do you guys really know that would actually
Photos
do
now
that, though?
of Trump supporters popping Nazi salutes at Trump rallies. We would have never seen that until Trump. This is the first time I've seen that since probably in
It would have more likely been a
But-
protester.
80s.
Actually, it would have been somebody that was dissenting that'd be like throwing a Sieg Heil
Yeah.
at him in a,
But
you know.
you see Trump supporters
Right.
doing Nazi salutes. What the heck, guys?
Right, but that's what I'm saying is 4 years ago there were Obama supporters and their supporters who were physically assaulting people who were just because they had a red hat on. They were
Well, I
physically
don't-
assaulting them.
yeah, I
I've
don't
seen
think
the
that
videos
it
of them
was
chasing them down, chasing them,
the kind
pulling
of
the hat
scale.
off.
Well, that
Well, I hope they got their day
Yeah.
in court. You know,
And I hope these
but
people get their
I-
day in court. What's the
Good,
difference?
As they should.
That's what I'm
as
saying.
they
What's
should.
the
But
difference?
Again, these
You're-
people
you're-
are being inspired by a president who's tweeting things like "Go back to where you came from" to sitting members of Congress.
Right. Okay. So that's good. So what about that guy who shot up the police? Do you think he was inspired by Obama because Obama was against our
Which guy
police?
are you
The guy in Dallas, Texas, who killed five police officers.
are we
literally
talking about
hunted
the
them down.
Black Power fella?
Yeah, whoever it was. Are you going to say
This
that
has
he
been
was
years
inspired?
ago.
He
Was he?
forgot the chair.
But does Obama share into that responsibility the way you're saying Trump
No,
does?
Obama didn't tweet anything. From
No,
the
but
White House.
Obama did.
that
Obama
inspired
was.
this
Yes,
person.
he was against police officers. He was constantly
No,
talking
see,
bad
that-
about police.
I-
No,
yes,
yeah,
There-
He was
there's a
constantly taking a side
tendency
against police officers.
in the conservative world to straw man everything about the left, and it's gotten to the point where you can't have a realistic discussion about it because the fact base is eroded so dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my problems with Obama are strictly political because he's never really gotten into those kind of areas. He's said things that have kind of gotten word salad. You know, the thing he said about the it escapes me right now. It was taken as a burn against gun owners, you know, and that they were sort of
clinging to their gods.
There
and
you
guns.
go.
Yeah, God and guns.
I don't know that he meant it to come across as callously or crudely as it did.
Yes, because
for
you know where
those
he was.
people. I do know where he was.
Where he was
But
when
what
he
I'm
said
saying is
that, he
when
was playing
when
to
he's
his
in
base.
that group, right?
Yeah.
Groups of people like, you know, myself, I have guns. I like guns. I do also think there are people that cling to their guns and their ideals about them.
Right.
Right? But I don't think that he's saying that to try and get the populace to rise up and shake those people down
No,
to their
no.
guns.
It's not
Whereas when you
inciting,
go after when you otherize people, that's
Yeah.
you know a
Yes.
popular
There you
word
go.
right now.
Yeah.
You kind of get into a a fantasy land. And I think that that's where we've gotten with the
But
straw
again,
man.
hold on. How is what Obama said not otherizing them? Those people who cling to their God and their guns. How is that not otherizing those people?
Well,
That-
first of all, he's not going specifically at sitting members of Congress. He's not going after people we all know by name, which puts a big target on a person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's first of all. So he's saying something that's very vague and general, whereas the president at this time, unfortunately, is going against specific individuals who are public figures and who cannot escape the public eye. That's a whole nother level of
Right.
That's really bad. Don't do that. You're endangering people.
Right. So nobody is pointing him out. Nobody, no other people in politics are pointing him
those
out.
people also don't have Secret Service and Marine Corps details to protect them. They don't have bulletproof glass like
But-
he does. They don't have the level of protection that he has.
Not the level of
And-
protection, but they
and
have protection.
If you make a threat against the president, you're going to get a visit from the Secret Service 100%
Oh,
of the
yes.
time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas if you make a threat against a member of Congress, which I often
You'll get
see
investigated.
not necessarily. I see people on Twitter and Facebook all the time.
Oh, we went
you
through
know?
this at a church that I worked at. Somebody, a disgruntled person who was an IT guru, emailed threats to then sitting President Obama and
Oh,
and all
geez.
that. Emailed them with the email addresses of our staff members. So we had FBI. This was congressmen.
Yeah, that's
well, it wasn't
very
just the president,
serious.
but it wasn't just the president.
But you mentioned the president.
Hey,
and that
I
Right.
did,
puts you
but
at
I'm
the
saying,
next level.
but I'm saying
Yeah.
threats were sent to Hillary. Threats were sent to local congressmen. Threats were sent to all these people using emails from our work emails.
funny
so we
story.
so it does get investigated, not just the president, but
It gets investigated very, very thoroughly. In fact, when I worked for Rigby and we were making the guns, we had a display at SCI, and we were supposed to get a visit from George W. Bush because we were going to be presenting him with a rifle that year at the show. And there was an email between the director of our company and his handlers saying, "We understand, all the guns at the show have to be unloaded,
Yeah.
but do we need to go through any other precautions for the president to be able to handle this gun at the booth?" And boy, if you wouldn't know, we had a Homeland Security person just wander in, just say hello. "Hey, how are you guys doing? We didn't know you were here." "What, are you stopping by?" "Oh yeah, I was just coming down from San Francisco and thought I'd pull off here in Paso Robles and pay you guys a visit." And it was one email.
Yeah.
But there's certain things that are flagged out there, and there's a reason they chase those down because, who knows what kind of kooks.
Right. So they are investigating. I'm saying it is going both directions.
Okay, so at the end of the day, where I'm at with all this is it's not time to take our foot off the gas. I want this nation to live up to its ideals, and I want to push harder on the gas. I want to build upon the progress that we've made, and I think that people who are sowing dissent and division, people who are telling people who are here quite lawfully and legally that they should leave, those are the people who I would rather not have in this country. If they want someone to leave, it should be them, because they're breaking down this country. They're tearing people apart so that we're at each other's throats, both on social media and in person. They're inspiring acts of violence.
How are you not recognizing that the person complaining against what America is doing is also causing division? How are you not recognizing that?
There's a difference between calling out the shortcomings of this nation and our system and our society and actually inspiring people to commit violence, or not condemning people who are popping Nazi salutes, calling them very fine people, things like that. So
I think that's an absolute misquote.
What, very fine people? When he's talking about the protesters at Charleston, the white supremacists?
He did not call the white supremacists very fine people.
Okay.
He said there were some very fine people.
Yeah,
There were some, yes.
In among them, they were all wearing polo shirts and khaki pants,
But
and
I'm
they looked
saying-
nice. So
But I'm saying there were some people who were not participating. There were some.
There may have been.
There may have
It's-
been.
it's hard
But
to say without us being there, yeah.
But you're willing to take that and say, see, look, he was specific. You're trying to say, he was specifically telling those whites. He was specifically trying to say that those white supremacists were good people. That's not what he said. And that's not what he was trying to say. And that's not what he was trying to say.
Did he circle back and say, whoa, that's not what I meant, I mean this?
Does it really
And
matter?
I unequivocally condemn white supremacy and the people who are taking me out of context and using this to inspire anti-American rhetoric amongst their neighbors.
probably shouldn't even be necessary to have to qualify yourself as not being a white supremacist.
But here we are.
But yeah, exactly. That's the.
But again, by doing that, are you not giving power to it?
There may be something to that
Are
too.
you giving credence to it by addressing it?
No, I think
the
you
news
show
does.
leadership, and you say, I unequivocally condemn this. It's become part of the news cycle. It's all over social media. I condemn this. This is not the nation that we aspire to be. We aspire to be something greater. And by the way, as I've always said, we have never been what we have aspired to be. And I want to continue pushing us in that direction. That doesn't mean I don't love my country. It means that I think we can do better, and I'm going to continue pushing until we get there.
And I just feel that again, I feel it's not that it's required by law to be respectful. It's never required by law to be respectful. And I don't think that should be anything that's ever codified. Like, you must show respect to whatever.
We may be more respectful today than we were ever in the past, as far as, I mean, American politics goes. There's a history of like some pretty rowdy interactions on the floor of Congress, people whipping one another, and I mean, we've calmed down. We've calmed down considerably, but I think the thing that scares people today is that all we have as a guidepost for this kind of behavior is the Nazis. And when that's your only point of reference, anybody who gets close to it, I mean, my family, all the European family are gone because of the Holocaust. And there's a deep strain in my family of just distrust of government, distrust of right-wing ideologies. And it is because it led to that. It doesn't mean that, you know, people who want to cut taxes are going to come and lock up your family or take them away on trains. But that doesn't mean, I see it kind of on the other side with a lot of your arguments. They get taken to the furthest extent, which is like enslavement by the government and, you know, none of us being able to have control over our lives and stuff like that. None of us could actually agree with that if we thought that that was happening to you. But that is the, you know, taking it out to its furthest extent to try and make the point. And I think that in a way you're seeing that with the left, because there's a genuine fear on their part that, you know, people go marching with torches, you probably should get the tanks ready.
It's unprecedented. I mean, the last time I think we had this level of
the Klan.
Nazis in public was probably in the 80s.
I don't think it's unprecedented at all. I think it's just simply overreported. I don't think it's unprecedented. I don't know if it's
overreported. I think it's always been there.
I think it's always been there, and now it's like, now you should be afraid of it. Now it's the media saying, you need to be afraid of this. It's the media creating this hysteria, just like they create hysteria about everything else. They create the hysteria about things that are not actual problems.
They amplify it.
But it's clickbait. It goes along with the narrative that the left wants to tell. So they want to tell this narrative. I think they're working people up over a few hundred people out of 300 and some odd million people. Yeah, maybe a few hundred, maybe a few thousand. But I think that's not something that we all need to be terrified of, because the media is making it look like, look, half the nation wants to kill black people.
Well, the Southern Poverty Law Center follows those. I mean, and they report out.
Right, but the Southern Poverty Law Center is a hack job.
Well, not according to most normal
They refer
sources.
to Focus on the Family as a terrorist group. They're a hack job.
I have problems with Focus on the Family.
Right, but are they a terrorist group? I mean, come on, are they?
If I try and convince my followers that somebody not following my belief system needs to die, and they carry that out. I mean, the Tiller, the baby killer thing, right? That got said over and over again on Fox News. Somebody finally went and shot the guy in the head in church. That you can't unravel that. Once it's happened, it's out there. Whether they're really responsible for it, that's where you get into this.
That's what I'm saying. So
parsing.
you have the Southern Poverty, the
SPLC,
That is when you actually look into what they call conservative groups, simply because they're conservative groups, it's ridiculous. They are actually
and they're not tracking conservative groups. They track like militant groups, like militias.
That's what I'm saying.
They
call militant and militias is what's
hammerskins. I mean, guys that like go out there and get Nazi tattoos,
right?
With Norse runes and stuff.
Cool. There's
easy to
3 dozen of them in some little hole in the ground.
They've been growing and you know, they ebb and flow with the time. When we were kids, I didn't really see anything like that. I got into my 20s and I started spending more time in Orange County, absolutely, there were skinheads. They were out there in gangs at night, ready to do business, and you didn't want to mess with them. And as I got older, they were out of my purview because I wasn't out at night at a punk show where I'm going to run into those guys. It doesn't mean that they went away.
Right.
You know, and there's also there's a polite type of a racism that we have in this country. And then there's the overt racism. And those two things sort of go back and forth with what people think is polite. You get some people that they do it just to see if you get a rise.
Yeah,
you know?
politeness favors the oppressor, never the oppressed.
It really does.
Yes, Brett.
That's my issue with civility and politeness.
Yes, Brett, Fox makes hysteria over culture wars. I didn't say the left. I said media. All media. All media is just trying to blow everything out of proportion for headlines.
Well, most media is coming from a place of trying to make money for sponsors. So,
but at what time do we do something, though?
I mean,
what do we do? At what time do we say, wait a minute, maybe this is...
You have to be rational. You have...
Out of 40 ground
I was watching the news of...
With 33% of the vote.
Yeah.
I was watching the news. Again, I was watching the news, we've got to be realistic, of a city councilman in Los Angeles who was saying, I'm making this decision because literally in 12 years, I have districts that are going to be underwater. And I'm like, okay, who are you? He's literally terrified that in 12 years, parts of Los Angeles are going to be underwater. That's ridiculous.
I mean, what does the science say?
Right. The science doesn't say that.
Put the science on it.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying he's terrified. He is legitimately scared for his people because he's been worked up by the media to believe that. He's been worked up to believe a lie.
Well, maybe he's worked up by the numbers. I mean, if that's his job and he's immersed in it, he may have some insight into it that we don't. And, you know,
Come on. In 12 years, parts of Los Angeles.
We have holes in the Arctic blowing out methane. I mean, they're literally exploding. The ground is just exploding because methane that's been frozen for several million years is all of a sudden exposing itself.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we have real changes happening. If the argument is whether we caused them or not, we really are sitting here watching it all go by. It's like Nero fiddling while Rome burns.
My point on that is we have people legitimately scared over
it's true.
nothing.
I don't know if it's over nothing, but they're legitimately scared.
They're being moved to hysteria by the media.
As Brett just said here, you educate people to think critically. And
But that's not what they're doing. No, the media does not educate to think critically. The media just riles people up.
That is probably more true than not.
Yeah, the media is
because
not trying
that's
to educate
making them money.
Educating doesn't make them money.
But at the same
Making people hysterical makes them
Right.
money. So if you're being driven by what you see in the news, you are being led into hysteria by people who are profiting off of that.
So do you think we should be complacent in the face of Nazis or militias or terror groups of any kind?
Not complacent, but not. The more attention you give them, the more power you give them. Leave them off to the side as the crazy people they are. Don't give them legitimacy. Don't give them the power. Don't say, look how powerful they are. Look how strong they are. You should be afraid of them. You are giving them power by giving them so much.
Should you be polite and respectful to them? Should you be civil?
I think you should always be civil if you see somebody, ignore them. If they're yelling at you, then confront them. I don't care. But if I see a person who has a shaved head, I'm not going to assume that they are a white supremacist and want to kill black people, and I'm going to go beat them up because
And you'd
of
be
it.
amazed what you can get with civil discussion. I've mentioned before, I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but I have a friend in Lompoc. His grandfather was Rudolf Hess, Hoess, who ran Auschwitz. He is the son of bikers because that's what happens when your dad's hanged as a war criminal. You let your hair out in America and you ride motorcycles and you sell drugs. And this fella had a really rough life. He's basically got the same point of view as his great-grandfather. But we were able to have a pretty good discussion, part of it because I knew a little bit about Marine history and he was a Marine. And I got him to let his guard down. And once he was able to find out enough about me, he was surprised that he already liked me and that I may have had some sort of mongrel blood, you know. But we were able to get beyond that to a point that we could have like a real discussion. And I'm not saying that he's any less a white supremacist today than he was before, but I don't know that he's the type of person that's going to go out and start killing people. He just has a point of view that I find distasteful. But I wouldn't want to lock those people out of my life because I also lock out any chance of getting to them. And I've seen a lot of that with churches. And honestly, one of the things that I have a lot of respect for, even as a pretty devout atheist, is that churches will tend to go for people that the rest of us will, thank you, no, I don't have time for that. And sometimes not because it's the easy thing to do.
No.
And I think that there's something that is of value in bringing people together that do think they don't like each other and trying to figure out why,
One of the things that Scott and I sort of sorted out is if you go at a person's core beliefs directly, they're very likely to close off, clam up, and double down on those beliefs.
Probably.
So one of the things you have to do is kind of engage in some level of polite civil interaction with them. You have to essentially build affinity. Again, the Scientologists have this little whole thing about it, where you build affinity, and then once you have affinity, then you can kind of agree on reality. And then once you have affinity and reality agreed upon, then you can actually start having a meaningful discussion about where to go. But at the same time, I'm not going to fault a person who, if somebody's ideology is you are less of a human than I am, or you must be exterminated, I'm not going to blame that person if they don't want to sit down over a pizza and a beer and have a discussion of worldviews.
So on that note, Marshall agrees that Israel cannot at all have talks with Palestine, right? Because that's what the Palestinians believe, that Israel does not have a.
That is a whole nother debate.
But that's basically what you said, right?
I was not prepared for that discussion.
But that's where your line of thinking goes.
Well, ultimately.
Or should we always be able to come to the table and talk?
I don't think we should be stealing land from indigenous peoples.
Either way, should we?
Our ancestors did here, and which has happened to some degree in Israel.
So, but I'm just saying, should we still have discussion? Try to have rational discussion with people who have that belief.
They deal with Hamas. I mean, Hamas really is about as far to the danger zone for them as you get for local terrorist organizations. And they still do have to have interaction with them.
Yeah.
And in a way, they've propped up Hamas when they said they didn't want to because they had to.
Yeah.
And I think we run into these strange bedfellow situations all the time where, you find out you're working with like Al-Qaeda in Syria and you go, well, how can you do that? And you go, well, because they're not ISIS. And then you go, well, how's Al-Qaeda and ISIS not the same thing? And a general somewhere is like, no, really, the ones trying to kill us, these guys are working with us for right now, that's all right. That is a tough one for me to reconcile in my own mind. But I'm also not under shell fire in a foreign land and my people don't know I'm there. So, it's a complicated thing.
If you can believe we've done 47 minutes.
Oh, I can believe it. We can go another hour.
We can keep on going. We try to keep our shows to about 45 minutes or so. This has been a special episode on vacation with a valid answer of Scott Marshall and Josh. Thank you so much
for having me, guys.
Joining us.
I appreciate it.
I'm glad you drove out over here for that. I mean, you
I
have
am
to go
too.
very far, but this has been a great time. You catch us on Sundays at 5, Mondays at 4. Although I think I'm going to put up something tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow.
You're going to take the day off?
I'm going to take the day off. I am on vacation. We have a few days. Yeah, but
vacation on vacation.
It's that vacation on vacation and stuff like that. But I want to do this really special one here and go out of my way and go out of our way and kind of do this. I really appreciate you guys. So Sundays at 5, Mondays at 4, kerncast.com. Search us for a valid answer. You can email us a validanswer@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Scott.
Marshall.
Josh.
We'll see you next time.
See you.
Thanks.